It's time. It's time to talk about the Super Bowl, and we gave it a week. We wanted the numbers to come in. Okay, we wanted the numbers to come in, but first and foremost, Moose, did you watch the Super Bowl?
I did. I did, and a great game, start to finish. I'm not rooting for. I wasn't rooting for either the Chiefs or the Eagles, but really good game. Came down to the wire, and then the halftime show, of course, was part of the blueprint now. So of course, I'm glad I can bring this in now. So yeah.
So let's talk about this blueprint, or what we call the Super Bowl effect. Now, there has been a big stink about Rihanna not getting paid for doing the Super Bowl, right? People had back and forth feedback about it, especially when numbers came out as far as Apple uh, paying the NFL about $250 million over the next 5 years for the halftime show, right? But performers are not getting paid. Yet, this isn't something new. We covered it last year with Dr. Dre, Mary J. Blige, 50 Cent. This is something that was a conversation back then, too. And Dr. Dre actually paid millions for his set. The Weeknd also reported paying $7 million for his set when he performed. Now you have people like Prince, Michael Jackson, Justin Timberlake, J Lo, everybody that you've seen on the Super Bowl not getting paid. However, now that the numbers are in, we got to talk about, what does that really do? Why are people not getting paid and they are okay with it? Well, it's called exposure. And if we could look at these numbers for my audio listeners, I'm gonna read it out to you. But the impact, now we're talking about Rihanna, because this is what happened this year. The impact of Rihanna's Super Bowl performance, number one most streamed artist globally, 118.7 million views, 5 million more than the Super Bowl in itself. Okay. 17 songs on the top 40 on Spotify, gained 3 million Instagram followers. Searches of Fenty Beauty are up 833%. The Super Bowl effect is real. And so, where most would grow, like, that's why it was such a big stink as far as, yo, how is Rihanna not getting paid? What are you talking about? Sales in Fenty went up. Her streaming went up. Her brand awareness went up. So I actually brought this to the podcast because me and Moose are known for this lovely debate, and not in an ugly way, but we definitely don't see eye to eye with mastering the art of leverage, right? And do we do things for exposure? Do we do things for the look and the possibility and the opportunity? Or do we get the security? Do we get a guarantee of something, right? So, Musa, I would love your take on the Super Bowl effect, how
Yeah.
it's helped pass people, and your views on leverage.
Yeah. I mean, looking at Rihanna, and Rihanna played it really well, right? I think, especially as artists become more and more aware and educated of business, especially someone like her, she's running her own company, her beauty line, Fenty. So, really good to see what she did there, because I don't know if you noticed, but at one of the transitions during the halftime show, she pulls she fixes her makeup, right? And then
Absolutely.
almost immediately after, she launches a lipstick that is shaped, or it has like the football field design. And so phenomenal. I mean, that's stuff that is thought out and really strategically well positioned. So I love to see that happen on a grand scale. So that was really cool. And of course, the numbers, you can't debate those numbers. You're talking about 833%. You know what I was thinking, and I actually was going to ask you this. What do you think is the value of $3 million, 3 million followers, especially to someone like Rihanna? Because the average person, let's say they don't have the skill set or maybe the bandwidth to fulfill 3 million followers if their account was to increase by that much overnight.
Right.
But when you think of Rihanna and everything that she's a part of, having 3 million more people giving their attention to her, what do you think that might, how do you think that might translate in terms of growth from, I don't know, what kind of growth would you expect with 3 million more people?
I think, for one, that's the brand awareness, right? So something that will last long, because you think about it with the searches for Fenty Beauty, where it went up like 800%
Yeah.
or something, right? But that's good for that time frame where
Okay.
the 3 million, they're there. They're majority of them, maybe some may drop off once they realize that Rihanna doesn't post as much as she should or anything like that. But most of them are there, and she could now cater to them to more Fenty stuff. If she does, uh, a docu-series, which we'll get into that, more about her, magazine coverage, just more about her that will then convert into sales. So the increase in followers is a long game play that, she can now cater to, whereas, the streams are going to be good for the next couple of weeks. The searches are going to be up for the next couple of weeks. I think that's going to be great. But the gold is how did they stay, which is the followers. What was crazy, one of my followers on Instagram pointed out that they didn't have an email capture on the Fenty page. So though searches went up, there was no way to grasp that audience.
Right.
That's what I couldn't confirm. So if somebody goes, nah, what it did, I got the pop-up, they may have switched it now.
Right.
But supposedly on Super Bowl day, they didn't. And so that's why I believe the increase in the followers is good, because at least, even though we can't truly say we own that following count, we can at least cater to those people at that moment.
Yeah. No, that part is powerful, because you really got to think about the long-term effect of that, like you mentioned. And I was like, I don't know that I can even put a dollar figure to it, because I think just Fenty alone is worth somewhere north of $2 billion or something like that. So it's a billion with a B too. So that's major. But not to avoid the question, but I think for me, the reason why, and I'm not against exposure or doing things for, especially when it makes sense, right? But I just don't like the idea of walking into something where you have to constantly fight and make room to get what you deserve. And so in a case like this, like I said, I think the financial knowledge and the business savviness of especially mega stars like today, when you think of someone like a Jay-Z or Rihanna who run billion-dollar empires of their own, you don't get there by luck. You have great teams with you. You have a great set of knowledge that you can apply into the same space. Now, some people may say, well, hey, but there's so much banking on that one day. You got 13 minutes to capitalize on every second and every pair of eyeballs that are on you during that time. You got to think this thing through, right? It's only 13 minutes. And so I can see why some people turn it down. I don't know, especially when you start to look at the history of this, where I don't know that many other megastars are going to turn it down. Like, for example, I can only imagine what Drake would do at a Super Bowl. I mean, that would be out of control.
I
You know,
wonder if he
so
already turned it down. To sit here and say that Drake didn't get invited,
that would be
I,
bananas.
yeah, that doesn't make sense. Now,
Yeah.
maybe because you look at the time span that Rihanna got asked. Look at the time span that when J-Lo came. It's not like, not saying Rihanna's not at her prime, but she's not active,
Right,
right?
right, right.
Not to say J-Lo and Justin Timberlake and, Michael Jackson, they weren't at the, but I think it passes a little bit on the, maybe Drake is still too hot. I don't know.
Could be. That's a good point, though. You're right, because most of them are. It's like even with Bruno Mars, it's usually right after they peak. It's like on the other side of the mountain that they start making those invitations. But I'm just saying, when you think of it, when you think of those that amount of people watching you, and you see the stats that go along with it, it's hard to deny. In standard business practice, of course, as it relates to this whole leverage situation, I still gotta hold my position against it because I'm just like, man, can we not just be on the same page from the front? Like, let's just talk it out. Let's just be clear with the X's and O's. So, but Super Bowl effect, yeah, no, I can't doubt it. I gotta go on your bandwagon with the leverage boy for the Super Bowl because that's bonkers.
Yeah,
That's bonkers.
for those who don't know, I am big on leverage because I believe wholeheartedly on being able to show out on the opportunity. Like there's a lesson and there is an opportunity with everything that comes when it comes to a leverage play, right? Now, I did want to bring in maybe a little bit of sense of security that Moose would like as far as the Rihanna situation, because she did make a multimillionaire. She's a billionaire, but multi-million deal with Apple to do a docuseries about the whole Super Bowl situation. Now, I think there are, of course, some plays that can be giving you that security after you accept the invitation, right? Where, some people, we saw with the Beyonce and the Coachella situation. I'll get paid
Mm-hmm.
less, but I need all rights to it because I'm going to be doing Netflix. I'm going to be doing all these, like I need to have ownership of that, right? So when we are doing these leverage plays, how can we secure what we thought what we were worth? You know, and if you know by being on this stage, being part of this partnership, being part of this whatever the collaboration is, right? If you know that this is going to open up some doors, get you some eyes, how do we take advantage of, okay, I'm going to give you less or I'm going to do this for free, but while I'm doing it, what can I secure that will not necessarily take me away from it, because it doesn't take her away from that focus. But what can I do that also creates an extra bag for me that I'm doing simultaneously, and it builds that security. And I
Yeah.
think that part is what needs to be more mastered than necessarily putting all your chips in that one bag of, I'm going to be on this stage, I'm going to be in this collaboration, and I'm going to do it all and watch the opportunities come to me. No, you still have to be the creator of your own opportunities as well with this potential opportunity, you
That's
know?
so good. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
go ahead, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that's so good. It unfortunately in the past, everyone benefits but the artist.
Yeah.
And so now that the artist is looking after their own interest and has more control to that extent, they're looking at the ways in which they can capitalize on revenue or income, even in means outside of the main stage or those main 13 minutes. Because you're right, when you think about how much work and effort goes into it, like you just mentioned, the weekend, $7 million just to prep for the stage. That's not to say everything else. I mean, with I don't even want to begin to name it. It's a lot of money that I'm sure that goes into it. No, I was going to say, just like the choreographers, the backup dancers, like the band, that's beyond the stage, like there's more that go into it, other people that you got to pay to do that. And so I'm just saying that is a tremendous amount of money that gets invested. And so if we can begin to think about, I'm saying we as if the podcast is about to, I don't know, sponsor the Super Bowl somehow.
Come on.
Some craziness, but it's true. It's like you got to think of ways to maximize your profits and your revenue outside of what the main attraction is, because there usually is more than one way. It's almost in a way of capitalizing on the behind the scenes. And we look at documentaries like The Last Dance, and I know The Captain with Derek Jeter. There's supposedly one that's supposed to be coming out with Kobe Bryant as well that was done the same way. And those actually make you fall in love more with the star person than what you saw them do in the real performance, because you feel more of a greater connection. So I think even deals like that end up netting a greater ROI than what we see right now from a performance itself, especially when you think the long haul.
Yeah, and I think of instantly like service-based situations, because that's harder sometimes to think about the leverage situation, because you'll either give a huge discount or do things for free for a certain company or a certain individual. Now, if we're looking at the Rihanna blueprint of, okay, well, let me secure something while I'm doing it, doing the behind the scenes, how does one service company, service brand do the same thing? And I instantly think about Damien, right? So Damien just recently worked with ET about the UOU summit, right? So instead of when we're thinking about leverage and we're talking about, well, let me think about testimonials and that whole nine, I'm like, did you document, in which he did, by the way, but did you document this whole thing? Can you make it into a series that is now living on YouTube, right? Clipped up to be on the social media platforms. So not only does it attract future clients, right? But also you can monetize that content at the same time. So I'm thinking just clearly from a lower standpoint, not Apple multi-millions situation, but what keeps us still in the game, focused, because what a lot of, let's say, service-based situation, they think the leverage is getting clients based off the person's name or the company's name, but then it takes you away from what you were already doing. Because some people, 9 out of 10 times, and there are outliers. I'm not saying anything or downplaying nobody, but 9 out of 10 times when we do things for free or for a discounted rate, when the influx of clients come in based off what we do, some of us are not ready.
That's right.
And so when we go and we're now catering to these different demands, it takes away from what I call home, right? And in which you can hurt that relationship. And so you leveraged it, but you weren't really ready for it. And so that's where it gets a little hard with the leverage. It is now more of how can I, looking at the Rihanna makes me think a little bit different, as how can I focus on the main thing, focus on home, while simultaneously making a bag, doing the same thing, just documenting, doing the same thing, maybe creating something that will not only help home, but help the masses, but it's made for that. And then it's a subscription situation for everybody else. Things like these types of different ideas you look at mastering this whole leverage situation, and there's different creative ways to do it. Let's look at what didn't work, what did work, but at the end of the day, how do we get paid what our worth is in any opportunity, whether
Yeah.
it's free or not?
You know what's so cool? I just thought about this. I think that everyone listening to this podcast who has a brand or business, you should take on the exercise or the challenge of how would you prepare if you were performing at the Super Bowl halftime show and you're going to have all those eyes on your business and your brand.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just think of your current product line or the offers that you have available and start to strategically think, what would you do? Because quite honestly, you can get a marketing campaign. You can create your own Super Bowl. You don't need to be at the Super Bowl to, benefit from that type of strategy. You can just think about, like, hey, if my business was the halftime performance at the Super Bowl, what strategy would I use to maximize that attention? What would I do? Right. And I think that's a nice little workshop exercise activity that somebody should run through and just think about that, because there is a lot of different ways secretly hidden under that one 13-minute performance that a lot of eyes are captured on. But with those numbers, man, that could be another billion alone. Quite honestly, I didn't want to put a number to it because I there's no way to tell. But when you can fulfill at that scale, you could probably add another billion.
Well, she already guaranteed. Well, see, what I like about this is because now, and I don't know how many people paid attention to it. So she was like, she hasn't performed in 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And she hasn't performed in 7 years, had a kid, cute baby boy. And now the question of, is she going to do music again? What's happening with okay, now she's pregnant again. Now all eyes are back on her. This could have been a very perfect rollout for, like you say, billions, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
now, not only do you have the docuseries, but now people are going to see, okay, are you dropping music again? She kind of hinted, yes, right? I'm in a whole new, I love challenges, cool, right? She's doing covers. I believe she did Vogue, don't quote me. She did another cover right after,
Yeah.
and it came out right after the Super Bowl, expressing, about her pregnancy and how it feels to be a mother now. And so now people are invested and are back at looking at Rihanna's journey, that were more than just Rihanna Navy. Okay. For those who don't know, that's her community, right? More than that. So now the world is looking at what Rihanna is about to do next. The world, not just her community, the world is now, she's back. We got Rihanna. What better way to come back than the Super Bowl?
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that she did it on her own time too. You know, it's one thing to feel forced and worry about, oh my God, if I don't do this, I'm gonna miss this opportunity. And look, yes, you have to take advantages of opportunities when they present themselves to you. But some people do they reach a status or a class where they can decide when they say yes and when they say no. And it seems that she's doing it at a time where she can at least go and do that interview on with Apple Music and at least show face and actually do almost a complete press run and completely maximize or take advantage of all of the attention that's coming, versus you do it, you're not really ready, you go back into hiding, and it's not worth it. And you don't come back a second time for the Super Bowl. There's nobody who's performed, and I gotta check that. I want to say I'm pretty confident about it, but I don't know that anyone's ever performed at the Super Bowl halftime show twice. It's like you're one and done. You got one opportunity for that. So that's a different experience.
Well, look, Rihanna showed us some new ways. It's appreciated. That the Super Bowl effect, a really huge Super Bowl effect. But
Yeah.
we've talked about those different effects, even with
Versus.
verses. Yeah, we've
Yeah.
talked about it with verses. Clearly not those big numbers, but they also have big numbers. So we have to look at all these different opportunities. We may not have Super Bowl or versus opportunities, but we have the Super Bowl within our niche,
Mhm.
Super Bowl within our market. And we have to look at those different opportunities and say, yo, how do I leverage this to the max? Like, and then also work on making the bag while I'm doing it. I think that's
Mhm.
very, very important.